Hello, friend. My name is Derek Harder, and in this video, I'm going to show kind of the assignment workflow for if you're in one of my classes where we're using JupyterHub, a dev environment that has JupyterHub and Python installed in it, and you're supposed to be doing assignments with that. So this would be for my deep learning class or my machine learning class or some classes where I'm using Python. This video is for you. So I'm assuming in this video that you already have your dev container environment set up and running so that you can, you've got Docker, you've got VSCode, you can clone one of our assignments that has a dev container in it, and you can start and run inside that dev container. If you haven't done that yet, you probably need to do the previous video first. But let's go ahead and get started. I'll show you some of that I talked about. And then the main part of the videos, I want to show kind of an accepting assignment and what you normally do in order to commit your work and push it up there so it can be graded. So let's begin. So I already mentioned that I've already got my VS Code and Docker and everything set up. So if I was going to be working on an assignment, like for example, the first assignment for a neural networks and deep learning course, you usually need to start by going over and finding the assignment. So I usually just tell people to go to the content, find where the assignment is. So I should have given you a GitHub invitation link. So this will, that's actually a GitHub Classroom invitation link. So if you click on that, it will take you through the steps so normally you'll have to accept the assignment. If you haven't ever done this before, the very first thing it'll ask you is to associate your GitHub with your classroom name. So make certain you select the right name. If you don't see your name on there, don't pick somebody else's name. Let me know that you're not on my roster yet. So once you're ready to go, you will get a link on here so you can go to your repository. It should be named something like assignment whatever, and then your GitHub username. If you need to reopen that back up, so you've gone away, so you can actually re-click on the invitation. I know a lot of people do that, but probably the better way, or the correct way you should do that, is you should go to your GitHub. It's not a repository that you own. So basically what's happened on GitHub Classroom is it's creating a repository. You're given read-write access to it, but my organization owns it. So you'll actually find it under, if you go to your organizations, you'll most likely, unless you've done other classes, will only be a member of the organization or the organizations for the classes that you've taken. So in this case, this is I'm doing this video for summer 2025 for our 560 course. So if you go in there and look in repositories, you should find your repository there. So that's another way to get back to it. Okay, so the first step after you've accepted the assignment is we need to clone a copy of your repository down to your local system so that you can have a copy of it and start working on it. So to do that, you need to have your VS Code set up and everything set up to have dev container executions working. So you've already got your GitHub account. You need to have Docker running. So I'll just check, open up my Docker desktop, make certain that it is running here. Real quickly, where's my Docker? There it is. So you need to have your Docker desktop up and installed and running, so you should see that the engine is running there. So what I normally do is I use the VS Code source control to clone a repository. Then you have to type in the URL of the repository that you want to clone right there. So in my case, so you get that by going to your repository and pulling down the green code here. Make certain that you're cloning your SSH key. So if you clone it with HTTPS, you can only read it. You won't be able to write and push back your commits there so they can be graded. So we'll copy that URL, go back to Visual Studio Code, clone repository again. And you want to clone it from the URL, so don't select the other option there. So you need to select a place on your local system, in your file system, where you put your repositories when you clone them. I recommend having a subdirectory called repos. So I always have a directory in my home directory called repos where I normally clone my repository. So let's go ahead and select that. So, again, you might have an error here if you don't have your key set up or things like that. So it should clone successfully. And if it asks you if you want to reopen it, you should always reopen that clone repository. So I've now got it in a VS Code project folder. Also, if you've got Docker and your dev container set up correctly, it should give you the option to reopen in a container. So let's go ahead and reopen that up. If you miss this prompt, you should see that, so one way, if you miss this prompt, is you can reopen it if you go to your Remote Explorer. So by installing the Dev Containers extension, you should have a Remote Explorer. So in particular, what you want to do is you want to, if you don't reopen it when it asks, you can create a new container. So then you can say open the current folder in the container. So that will do the same thing. That'll reopen what the current folder is that I have open inside of this container there. So either way, if you miss that prompt or if you don't see it, you can try that here. If you don't see it, it might mean that Docker's not running or you've got some other configuration set up. So the very first time you do this, it actually has to create a Docker container. So this might take some time. So I'm going to pause here. But hopefully if you have everything set up, it will successfully create the container and complete this here. Okay, my Docker is done setting up here. So if everything went well, it should look something like this. It'll come back up. You should see on the lower left-hand corner that you're running in a dev container. It can very well, many times setting up the Docker container can have problems. So if it seems to stop, or if you get an error, you might have to investigate that further. Sometimes, if you have network connectivity issues or things like that, it might just get stuck. So for one thing, often that I see, if it's gotten stuck, while it's doing the containers and setting things up, it runs like a time, keeps track of how long it's been running. If that seems to stop, it's probably got installed or something like that. So you can just try like stopping this container and then restarting again. So if you want to stop a container, you go over to File and then say close the remote connection, or you can go to your Remote Explorer and stop it there. So if it had an error, I usually suggest going to, exiting out of the container, then going to the Remote Explorer, stopping that, and then deleting. You have to have it stop before you can delete it. So delete it, and then try and reopen it in a container again and recreate it before you get, too worried, because hiccups can happen. So, if you have problems, maybe just delete what happened and try starting again from the beginning. If you still have problems, it might be worthwhile not only deleting the container, but deleting your local copy of the repository and recloning and starting back from there. So, okay, so let's look at what we've got here. So, I'm working on and showing you the workflow for assignment 1. So in Visual Studio Code, what we do by default is we start up a JupyterHub server for you. So you'll notice some things. It is normal for it to have this keep running here in this configuration, because we run the JupyterHub server in a terminal, and it stays running the whole time. So, and you'll see if you look here, that's actually running on port 8888. Let's start by opening up the JupyterHub. So I usually work just from the regular JupyterHub HTML interface. So one way you can do that is if you double click, open up this nohub.out file. If you scroll down here, you should find that it'll have the URLs. So probably your IPv6 one won't work, but the IPv4 one should work. So I usually just control click on that or just copy paste that. If you control click on that, it should follow the link to your default browser and pop up VS Code for you in there. Okay, so this JupyterHub is actually running from inside of my dev container, and I've got my assignment files and then ready to go so we can start running things here. Another thing, it is possible to run container to actually run the notebooks inside of VS Code. Some people like to do it that way. I usually prefer from the web interface. Let's go ahead and close this off. That'll keep running even if you close off the bottom part there. So you can try that. It should be set up. I haven't tried this one here on the most recent setup. So if you double click on an iPython notebook, it should come in here. You do need to be careful, make certain you select a kernel. So I don't know if it's running here or not. Let's just check. So normally if this is running, you should be able to, do things kind of the same that I'm familiar with from using it in like a web browser. So like if we run all, so yeah, it probably doesn't have the kernel set up initially for you. So you'll have to select a kernel. The first time you try to run a cell, you have to select a kernel. So I believe the correct thing to do is to select it from, let's try. I can't remember exactly what the best one is to do. So we should have a kernel running in the existing Jupyter server that's running for you. Let's try that one. So so this might work, but you have to copy the URL of the server. So I think you can also select the kernel and just do it directly from your Python environment. That should work too. In this case, in the development environments that I give you, you want to use the 3.12 one from the base. Okay, so these other ones are coming from the Ubuntu operating system. This is the one that we installed in this development environment for Conda. It's in the opt Conda. So make certain you do use the right one there if you select the kernel by hand. So let's see if that works now. So if you have a kernel running, yeah, you should be able to edit and do these notebooks from inside VSCode 2 if you want to as well. So yeah, so it seems to be running. So either way, although it might not be safe to be doing this both in VSCode, you probably shouldn't switch back and forth here. So let me close that off and not save that. So let's show using the assignment, the basic assignment workflow that you would do for assignments like this in my class. So usually what you'll be given is a single notebook for the assignment that you can open up in your JupyterHub server or in VS Code if you prefer. I think it should work as well. You'll also be given so normally inside of the source subdirectory there should be a Python module file called assignment task. So you're going to actually be writing functions inside of this assignment tasks function. So to tell you the truth, I mean, the editor in the JupyterHub isn't really great, so if I'm doing a lot of editing, while I usually like to do my iPython notebooks from the web-based JupyterHub server, I mean, VS Code is definitely a much better editor. So, I might switch back over to VS Code to edit if I want to, when I'm getting to the point where I want to put stuff into the assignment tasks file, right? So your preference, but you can do things either way. So the first thing you might want to check once you start an assignment, make certain that the notebook is running cleanly, all the cells from top to bottom. So, if I hit that to restart the kernel and rerun everything again, I usually just say, don't ask me again, because I do that a lot personally. You should get in the habit of doing that a lot. You need to make certain that your notebook always cleanly runs from the top to bottom in whatever state you have it in. Although with a caveat, like in my neural networks and deep learning course, sometimes some of these cells will take a long time. So yeah, I mean, when you have cells that take a long time to execute, then maybe you're not going to be rerunning everything from top to bottom. So for these assignments, I'm not going to show you how to do the assignment here, but one thing that you need to do, there will be cells that you have to write a function. Okay, so in this case, we need to write a hello world function, and like it says here, that needs to go into the assignment task. So that actually gets loaded in your notebook in the imports at the top, and then we test it here by running these tests. You shouldn't modify these cells. So when you first start the assignment, none of your tests will be passing. So these will all fail. So what your goal is you need to implement what's asked for on these kinds of cells so that it actually, you don't get the red here. So it is actually passing all these tests here. So in fact, I think I will actually just show you the first one for this assignment. So I'll give a freebie for my first assignment for my deep learning neural networks course here. So in this case, we're just supposed to write this function so that if it gets called with a string, it returns the string just a second. Yeah, sorry, I had to remember. So if you pass in a string like John, it should return a result. It should just say hello. You have to use the parameter that's passed in, exclamation mark. All right. So let's just write that real quickly. So like I was saying, I would normally do that over in my assignment task. You may or may not be given the initial function to run here, but here's the one that we need to do for this task 1 for the assignment. So for this case, we should be able to do something simple like hello plus the parameter, right, like that. So if I did that right, that's what all the tests should be expecting there. Okay, so when you do that and you save it, it should automatically get reloaded in the notebook. Okay, so if I do like a kernel, restart kernel, and clear the outputs of all cells, and then let's rerun all the cells above this one. Because I want to go down here and test this one. I want to test the hello world function. So let's see if it's passing or not here, if I did it right. So yeah, this is what you should see. So yeah, it will still be red, but you should see all the tests are passing. Okay? So normally for these assignments, you'll have multiple tasks like that. You have to read the description, figure out the what you need to do to get that function so it passed those tests. Okay? And there'll be some other cells you have to fill in. So sometimes it's a function like that. Sometimes there's just instructions. You have to create something like a figure or something in the notebook. So you have usually 2 kinds of tasks in these assignments. Okay. And by the way, you can actually also run all these tests for your assignments inside of VS Code. So let's make certain it's working. This should be set up for you in the development environment. So it should have the test runner set up so that it'll be running all these tests in the test assignment tasks file. So if we go up here and run the test runner, so I haven't completed very much yet, so everything will be red, but your goal at the end of the assignment, you should get everything with green check marks. And so at this point, we've only got the test hello world passing and nothing else. All right. Okay, so we're not quite done yet because you need to know how to actually submit your work to be graded for the assignment, okay? So we are using GitHub repositories. So if you haven't used Git before, you're going to get a little practice at using Git. So here, yeah, you might not want to read these, but I'll kind of show you what I mean by this. So now that we've actually made a change in our code, if we go back to VS Code, you should see, if you look at your source control, that some files are changed now. Okay, so I mean, I was rerunning the notebook, so it was modified, and we implemented this the function for the first task in the assignment task.py. Okay, so what I need to do is I need to make a commit and push it back up to your GitHub Classroom repository, so I will be able to see it, and it will actually be run in an autograder. So these same tests will get run on GitHub, and so I'll be able to see which test you're passing or not, and whether you're passing all of them or still not getting some of them correct or not. So I usually use the source control interface in VS Code to make commits and push them back up to GitHub. So here, be careful. You should only select the files that you want to make a commit of. I want to go ahead and commit both of these files here. So I'll go ahead and add both of these. Always use good commit messages. That was one of the things. So so a good commit message has a title, and it should be descriptive, and you can read some of the other things. So, so task 1 is finished, and this commit, the hello world function now takes a string and returns a new string as asked for. So, I mean, it's probably a better description than that, but that's the basic idea. So, commit message, look at that. You're going to create a commit. The commit is only local here now, so I haven't actually pushed it back to your GitHub repository, so I still can't see it until you do the sync changes. Okay? Some people, sometimes you don't get this option. It doesn't, for some reason, VS Code might have a bug or something, doesn't realize there's some local changes that haven't been pushed yet. So another thing, again, on the bottom left hand is more status. In particular, right here is the status for the source control. So this is saying we're on the main branch. We've got 0 commits remotely on GitHub that we haven't pulled down, but we do have 1 local. So I can push this down here to do the sync or the push, or push it up here, either way. So, you know, I don't really want this to keep showing that to me. If you have a permission denied, you might not have your SSH key set up correctly, or it might not be being communicated in your container correctly. So I'm going to check that. In the video about setting this stuff up, it did talk about that. So so yeah, I maybe missed the step on the current setup that I have here. So let me just check that. So yeah, it is true. So my key didn't correctly get communicated down into my container. So let me go ahead and fix that, and then come back to you and make certain we get that working. Okay, yeah, I did in fact not have the key I needed in my SSH agent. So anyway, if you do get a message like that trying to sync, you probably have the key wrong. Make certain you've got your key available. So you should be able to SSH to get at github.com inside of the container, and get the authentication. So now my sync should work. Okay. So it's okay to allow VSCode to periodically fetch. Okay, so it should be good, and that was actually pushed down to my GitHub Classroom repository. So let's go check it up there, make certain everything's good. You should always, whenever you do a push and commit it, make certain that it actually got up there and it's passing the same tests that you should think that you just completed and are passing. So I'll go back to my GitHub account. So I'll remind again, you know, I need to come back to it. I haven't been working on it. I would go to my organizations, look for the organization that I'm working on the assignment for, find my actual assignment repository, and go there. Okay. So when I pushed it up there, you'll see, if you look at your feedback pull request, if it's successfully pushed, when you look up here, it should find it in the list of commits that have been made that are gathered here in what's known as a pull request. Okay. Another thing is it's still running. It for this class, running these Python notebooks can take a little bit of a time. So it's actually still running the tests here. So that's good. We can kind of view it as it's actually trying to run them. Because, so I might have to pause here, but basically the same thing that when setting up your environment, it actually has to download and set up a well, it has to, it uses a basic container that has Python version that we specify. But we do have to install some things like maybe TensorFlow and some other stuff. So it's actually still configuring the environment before it can actually get to the part where it goes and tests things out. Okay. So let me go ahead and pause here until this gets done. Okay, real quick. Oh, missed it there. I tried to come back before it did it, but we got finally down here where it's actually running the autograder. So we can see what happened. So the first thing that happens on the autograder is it first makes certain that your notebook is cleanly running. Okay, so all cells need to run cleanly from top to bottom. So again, that's this. So before you make a commit, I probably didn't do that, I didn't mention, but it's a good practice to check that if I rerun my notebook, every cell from top to bottom, it doesn't error out in the middle. So I should see every cell rerun cleanly. So I mean, they're not passing the test, but it runs all these cells down to the bottom here. Okay? So that's what's talked about here, and then it runs all. Usually there's half a dozen tasks that you need to do for the assignment. So yeah, we are passing the task 1 like we were expecting because I finished that function, but all the other tasks are failing right now. And currently, I'm getting a 20 out of 100 for the score for the autograder there. Okay, and yeah, that's basically it. A few more things to talk or remind about. So it is a requirement that you make individual commits for each task. So if you read the instructions, right? So I shouldn't see just one commit and everything's done. I'll make you redo the work because I kind of want to see how you're doing things as you do the tasks one by one through the assignment, right? So each individual task in the assignment should be, you should save that your progress by making a commit and pushing it up here so I can see how you're thinking of all while you're doing stuff. So when you're done working on stuff, let's see, did I finish it? So I showed running the tests inside of VSCode and editing things here. So when you're done working on an assignment, you should like cleanly close off your container. So I normally just, when I want to stop working, I normally just do a file close remote connection. So that will cleanly exit out of the container and stop it running. It's still there. You can always restart it. So we'll go ahead and do that. We'll close the remote connection. So now if we go and look at our remote explorer, notice there's no green mark in there. So if I close off VS Code and I need to come back the next day and work on the next task, you can reopen the folder from your local file system, or you can just go directly to your dev container and reopen that container that was already created for you. This should be significantly faster than the first time when the Docker container was created, so it should come up mostly immediately. So now we're back running again, and the JupyterHub server is running. So. One other thing that maybe I thought I would show, I did maybe kind of want to give you a little bit of an idea of what's happening with these dev containers. Okay, so these are very useful, and I encourage people, if you're not used to using virtualization or containerization, to set this up and use it the way you're supposed to for these classes here, the way that we've set it up for you. So I'll just mention a couple things. So the two files that control a container that's run inside of VS Code, these dev containers, is the devcontainer.json and the Dockerfile. That's really, these are used just regularly by Docker, but it's also used in VS Code for these dev containers. The dev kit, for example, we set up your environment, we install the extensions that you should need. So we're installing Python and VS Code, and this is how by installing these that you're able to run the Jupyter iPython notebooks inside of VS Code if you want to. And we set up, this is where we set up and actually run the Jupyter Lab. I keep saying JupyterHub. It's really a Jupyter Lab server. There's technically a difference there. So it's actually running a Jupyter Lab server on the port 888 inside the container. And that's being forwarded to your local host so that you can actually run it on your browser, on your host machine, this JupyterHub server that's running. And in here, this is actually where everything is set up, including where we install the version of Python that we need using the conda package installer. And one thing I will mention is that, so we are expecting a specific version of Python and a specific set of libraries that are available for these assignments, okay? So that is specified in the environment.yml. So you'll see that we do Python 3.12, and we include these libraries. Right? So it's probably not safe doing assignments to use a library other than the ones that are given to you on the assignments in this environment.yml. You can ask me, but usually you should be using the stuff that's given to you. So yeah, don't put like pip installs or stuff like that in your notebooks, or I might not grade it, or I might just give it back to you. And for my neural networks and deep learning course, we actually also need to install TensorFlow. We don't need it for assignment 1, but it gets installed in here as well by doing like a pip install for these things. All right. So yeah, that's I think I covered everything I wanted to in this video. I hope that was useful for you. So just to summarize what we went over on this video, we saw from if you've got your environment set up, in order to work on assignments for the class, you need to clone your repository. So you need to first accept the assignment in our classroom. You'll clone the repository. When it clones the repository, if you've got Docker and everything set up correctly, it will give you the option to reopen that folder. So after you open your folder, it'll give you the option to reopen it in a container. You should always run these inside of the dev container. And the first time you open up an assignment, it will take a little bit of time to create the Docker container. If it successfully creates, you'll have the environment that you need set up for you with Python, Jupyter Lab, the scientific libraries, TensorFlow if we're using that, Keras, running inside of the environment. Okay, so then for the workflow is we are using Git. So you need to create commits after every task that you do for assignments and make a commit and successfully push it up to your GitHub Classroom repository. That's where I see it. And you should double check in the feedback pull requests that you actually see it run and pass where it's expected to pass in the autograder. Okay, that's it for this video. Good luck on the assignments, and I hope to see you in class.